Hello, we're back. Southern Belle Atheism on YouTube, and we are the Bells of Atheism on Twitter. You can find me personally at Vesper Wolf on Twitter. My name is Amber Geislinger, and I'm here with a hero, an incredible person, an adoption reform activist. She is basically on the forefront of a lot of good things that are being done online to save mothers and babies. Her name is Lynn Johansenn, and she started her own organization, Saving Our Sisters, and she is a personal inspiration to me to be a better person. And she is truly a hero for mothers and babies and women and girls and everybody, really, families all over. So I want to at first say thank you for being here, and thank you for all the good works you've done. And please check out the Facebook page, Saving Our Sisters, for all the awesome inspirational stories where she actually saved babies and moms. And just tell everybody what Saving Our Sisters actually is, and explain adoption trafficking and what's happening to families here in America, primarily poor families.
Yeah, so thanks so much for having me. I just really appreciate the opportunity to kind of talk about this and, start bringing a lot of this out into the forefront. The main focus with adoption is everything is happy and everything is great and a baby gets a home. In majority of the cases, or at least a majority of the cases that I've seen, a lot of these moms and families just need help. They just need a little bit of support. They just need a little bit of people to have faith in them and really to offer to provide, even if it is virtual support through the internet, it just really makes a difference. And so Saving Our Sisters got started because I actually lost my son to an unnecessary adoption. And it's close to 5 years now. I never thought that I would ever be able doing anything like this, but after everything happened to me the way that it did, and I started to learn all of the different things that I didn't know about adoption, and my eyes were really opened wide and very quickly after I lost my son. And I started speaking out and, started to really dig into a lot of the things that I didn't know, such as open adoptions are not enforceable. They're not legally enforceable in majority of the states. And if for whatever reason, the adoptive parents decide to close the adoption, you really have no recourse as a natural family. None of your family members have any recourse. So what I started to do is kind of realize all of the things that I would have needed to hear, which were basically truths and full disclosure on all of the pieces of adoption. So, that my baby was going to suffer was the main thing for me. And it took me a long time to really understand what that was for me, what it was going to be. I had many people ask me, okay, so you've gone through this now and you kind of understand all of this, but what happened? Like, why wouldn't you understand this before? Or why, if people offered you help, what happened? And really what it took me 2 years to really figure out was what I needed to hear in order for me to kind of flip that switch is to hear that my baby would suffer. And you think about that and you go, well, okay, she's already a mom, why wouldn't she get that bond? When you're in crisis and you're going through all of this, you're 50 pounds, you've put on 50 pounds, you're, working a 10, 12-hour day, you're in the car driving back and forth to work, you're single parenting your kid, you are overwhelmed and looking for a means to an end. At least that was my situation, and really trying to do, the best, right? That is what adoption is supposed to be, is the best for the baby. And, once I really started to understand and read about all the science behind what the baby is going through, and after going through all of the science, right, from a mother's perspective, it was really, really hard for me. And that's when I realized that I really just had to stop and do something about it. I just couldn't let another mother knowingly do this to her child, or really unknowingly do it, I guess, because they don't tell you a lot of this stuff. So, for me, it was really just about that. It was just about going out there and being totally honest and putting all the cards on the table so that they can really make an informed choice, because I wasn't given that opportunity.
Now, one thing that people always ask me, well, how could these women be coerced? Because they think that the age of forced adoptions is a thing of the past, and they want to live in the little fantasy that we all have full rights and everything's better now. But the truth is it's not. So when these people, very incompassionate, insensitive people, say these things to you, how do you explain to them that coercion is happening every day, especially to women who are under duress, whether it's physical or financial? How do you explain to them that the current number, 97% of all adoptions are coercive, forced adoptions? And it is a form of a lot of times trafficking across state lines where these agencies will do this. And these agencies have their own private attorneys and social workers. It is a way of selling human flesh. And that is what human trafficking is, selling humans. And they're doing it so, I mean, it's so insidious the way that they go about it and dishonest. So tell us how they manipulate. Tell us what these agencies are telling you. Tell us about how they're not telling you about your rights, that they're not telling you that you can get help elsewhere, and that they're not telling you about that you have Medicaid out there. A lot of women are not told about a lot of the benefits that they do have out there.
Yeah. So, the last, I guess, major case, if you will, the most dramatic, I would say is the most recent dramatic case that we've had was where actually the adoptive parents, the potential adoptive parents, actually brought the baby back to the mom. And this happened in Tennessee in December. The mother, who was 19, was literally coerced into going through with an adoption from her boyfriend at the time and his mother. And they found out that she was pregnant. Everyone knew. They basically told, both families, his family, her family, and his mother was just not having it. They were both very young. They were 19, pregnant and starting college. And basically, her family went through the whole pregnancy, very excited. They were having a baby on the way. And his family, his mother namely, was not. And so they decided that while they were away at school, they were going to go ahead and go through with this adoption. And he had her basically Googling online. And she ended up getting hooked up with some profiles online, found a caseworker out in California, which happens a lot.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And so she found this caseworker out in California, who happened to be connected and obviously working very closely with an adoption attorney, a private adoption attorney. So some of the laws in that situation, there were many laws that were broken actually in this case, and that's actually how they really saw the light that they needed to return the baby. So with her, they wanted to have her waive her revocation period. In Tennessee, both Tennessee and California, they actually have a 10-day waiting period, a revocation period, they call it, so that if mom decides to change her mind, she can. And all she has to do is put it in writing or, at least contact the agency, the caseworker, anyone that's on the adoption side. And she did that. She did that for a week, contacted them for a week. And what actually happened was she went home. After she had signed the paper, she had the baby the day after Thanksgiving. They actually scheduled an unnecessary C-section so the adoptive couple could fly across the country from California and pick up the baby. So they did that, and the baby actually left the hospital a couple hours before, actually a couple hours after she was born. So they had mom sign a document while she just had major surgery. She was obviously on medication. You can't sign a contract doing that. That was the first mistake. After that, she got discharged a couple of days later and went to her boyfriend's apartment. And they ended up hiring a third-party adoption agency in Tennessee to go to the house. And this independent adoption counselor took all of her relinquishment signatures, basically. Now, that adoption counselor didn't actually give her any paperwork. So she signed a whole load of documents and never got one stitch of anything that she signed, including the waiver of revocation. So she ended up going home to her mom, and her mom says, "Where's the baby?" And her and her boyfriend decided that they were going to, and the boyfriend's mom decided that they were going to tell her mom that the baby had died. And that's what they did. And her mom literally freaked out and was distraught, obviously. And eventually what happened was that mom just had to tell her mom. So she did, and her mom just went on a crusade. She said, that is ridiculous. This is not something that you wanted to do. She said, I absolutely did not want to do this, but I really felt like I had no choice. He didn't want to parent. His mom was on the other end, going through all of this stuff. And so she said, I just went along with it. Well, long story short, she ends up posting a GoFundMe out because she needs to hire an attorney, which is generally what happens. Anytime anybody wants to change their mind, they need a minimum of $5,000 to find an adoption attorney to actually, take the retainer and go through all of this. Well, someone in my network, in this virtual Saving Our Sisters network, actually found the GoFundMe and gave it to me, let me know, and I contacted her, and basically we started talking and started realizing kind of what had happened. And she sent me, the background of kind of what happened. Of course, she had no paperwork. She sent me copies of things that they had given her prior to actually going through with everything. And so then we started digging into the state laws and started digging into the statutes and the adoption statutes in both California and Tennessee, and realized that there were a multitude of things that had happened. So, they've scheduled an unnecessary C-section for a first-time mother. Then they've hired an independent adoption counselor to go and get all of her paperwork signed. But the actual laws in Tennessee state that if you're going to waive your revocation period, you actually either A, need to be in front of a judge, or B, you need to have your own attorney. She had neither one of those. She was in her boyfriend's apartment when she actually signed. And just a plethora of things that had happened after that. So once I kind of figured out what was going on, she needed really someone to advocate for her. And so with intrastate adoptions, there's, each state has their own ICPC, which is their interstate compact, basically, so that it hands off that, the adoptive parents can leave the state with the baby and all of this. Well, by law, what the adoption agency was obligated to do is once mom decided that she was going to revoke and had notified them, they are supposed to notify ICPC. None of that happened. Mm. Mom actually did that herself. She notified both California and both Tennessee. She didn't actually notify Tennessee. She had notified California right away. The adoption attorney she had also contacted also had told her that she needed to wait a couple of days, just wait a couple of days until there's a case number. Well, we all know that if an adoption gets a case number, that means a very long legal battle. Look at, Rob Manzanares, look at Carrie Stearns, look at all of these other cases that are out there, and it is years. They fight years for these babies. So we ended up getting on the phone with the ICPC department in Tennessee and literally explained everything I've just explained to you. And also, maternal grandma was phenomenal in this case. She was really the rock star in this. She actually videotaped and audio taped all of the interactions with everyone. With the adoption agency, stating that they did not give her any copies, with the attorney, all the phone calls they had with the caseworker. The caseworker actually had mentioned to this mom that she knew that the mom was a very smart girl and that she wasn't coerced, and that even a 12-year-old knows that they are supposed to understand what they are signing. And that's on videotape. It's on audio tape. It's really amazing. So, this was the first case, other than having things in writing, that we actually had audio tape and we could actually hear the coerciveness and the coercion happening, when this mom is begging for her baby back. It was just really heartbreaking. So once the attorney and the caseworker and the adoption agency really figured out that, these people kind of understand what's going on. They've contacted all the appropriate agencies, and there's a lot of things that happened that shouldn't have happened. The next thing you know, mom got a text that said, go to the adoption agency, make sure you have your car seat ready, and baby's coming home.
Wow. So how many days did it take her?
We got the baby back in less than 48 hours.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, once you figure out what these laws are that they're broken, this is the thing. This is the most frustrating thing, is that none of these agencies, none of these caseworkers, none of these people are ever held accountable. And it's exactly what
No,
you
they're
said
not.
before, that there's just no accountability. I can go speeding down the road and I'm going to be held accountable. I am going to get a ticket. I'm going to have, my insurance rates go up and all of this. In a lot of cases like these, mothers and the natural families do file complaints against the bars, wherever the attorneys are licensed, wherever the caseworkers are licensed and all of that. And basically, there's no law. There's nothing that says you violated my rights, you violated the rights of my baby, you did not follow the rules. There's no penalty. They have nothing to really, there's no recourse.
Yeah, these people are selling people and they should be in prison for this. They need to go to jail. This is a very typical case, this type of coercion coming from within a family as well as from without. And I was just trying to pull up, there's actually a website, it's adoption.com or something, where they actually have a box for other family members to sign the girl up. And it's really, really creepy. I was actually looking at a lot of these sites the other night, and I was looking for what you're talking about, for laws being broken and proof of laws being broken. And if someone can fill out a form and send that in to an agency, it basically, for a woman, without even her knowledge, how is that not a violation of just civil rights, basic human rights for the mother, for the woman?
Well, and this is the thing, anytime, and I tell this to women all the time, if we come across a mom, if somebody ends up connecting with a mom, we've got people all online. Social media has been, one of the main ways that this organization has really flourished. And it's brought so many people together who have been touched by adoption, who are living adoption separation. And it's natural families, it's adoptees, it's mothers, it's grandmothers that have all been separated, and in a lot of cases unnecessarily. And that's what's actually the scary thing is, I tell these moms all the time, there's absolutely no reason for you to talk to an agency right now. You really need to kind of recover from giving birth. You need to have that's your experience. It's your baby. You can't sign away your baby, except for in another case, which we'll talk about in a minute, right?
Well, oh yeah, and that's the one, that hashtag Bring Baby Elliot Home, that all of you who follow me on Twitter are seeing. And I'm about to get into the backstory if you wonder why I do care about adoption trafficking, but we'll end with that. If they want to further research this very specific case that you're talking about in Tennessee that you just explained, what do they need to Google? Is there a what is it under on your Facebook page, Saving Our Sisters?
It's out on the Facebook page, Saving Our Sisters, but there's also a blog that one of my very big organization members and supporters has, and it's Musings of a Birth Mom. And you can search on that blog, just type in SOS or Saving Our Sisters, and it will come up. And it happened around the 8th of December, so you'll be able to see kind of some of the details out there. And we're still putting together some documentation right now. I've got a photojournalist working on documenting a lot of these stories, a lot of these moms' stories. I've dealt with actually quite a few moms that have really had to deal with, even after they change their mind, the coercion still happens. They get a barrage of text messages. You hurt our family. You have to remember why you made this decision in the first place. And what I tell these moms that are considering is, stop talking to the agency, because I know just as good as anyone else that if you are going to talk to an agency, they know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly how to use your words against you. They flip it. That pros and cons list. Should I keep my baby? Should I give my baby? And they flip it and they turn it and they use it against you. And if you talk to an agency, you're going to end up with it.
Yeah. They're salesmen. They're used to selling, and whether it's humans or cars, salespeople, they know how to sell, and they also know how to manipulate. And having these mothers, especially there here in Alabama, there's a few halfway homes that's very reminiscent of the mid-century. And I just found out that from talking to an attorney last Friday night. We were brainstorming, trying to figure out how to eradicate pre-birth consent for the state of Alabama. And I'm glad you mentioned the science, because a lot of really cruel people, they don't care about the natural bond. They want proof. Well, there's plenty of scientific proof. We've pulled up abstracts. We've put the abstracts from peer-reviewed journals on saving our sisters. I have them on my blog. I debunked that completely. Celeste Billshart, I know she's written about it. The Primal Wound is a good book to check out, which talks about that cry that adopted infants make that sounds like colic or some other sort of chronic problem, is actually the call for their mother that they made in utero. They're calling for their mother. They know her biorhythms. They know the scent of her nipples. I actually read a study, like a peer-reviewed study, that babies know the scent of their mother's nipples and all the things that they need. And it's so interesting because human breast milk will actually produce carbohydrates and sugar. And a lot of animals won't do that. And I think we may be the only animal. The article that I recently read was talking about all the antibodies and the fact that if you get breast milk for the first 2 years, your immune system is much stronger throughout your entire life. And that's just the beginning of it. The mother needs her child to heal because her body, she melts fat from her. Basically, that's where the breast milk comes from, right? Her body melts the post weight. And not only that, but psychologically, they've done studies. Psychologically, both mother and child are the same at birth. Even though the child's outside of her and it's a baby, it's no longer a fetus and it's born, you're still psychologically the same for the first year or so. And that's why it's so imperative that we protect families, we protect women who have gone through this, and we protect children. And this is why they're so gun-ho to take children away from mothers. And this is why they do emergency C-sections. I have another acquaintance, a friend, who they did the same thing to her. There's a ring of doctors that they do that here. And they'll cut you open. They claim it's an emergency C-section, but it's to get the baby, the newborn, to the adoptive parents. Sometimes they're coming even from out of state as soon as possible. And I know it sounds like we're going down a rabbit hole, but this is happening in America, guys. This is happening. And if we're selling babies, wanted and loved babies from impoverished, disenfranchised, single mothers who are demonized because they're single and who are poor, if we're selling their children, can we really call ourselves a first world nation? Can we really say we are a first world country? We're in the 21st century. We've put people on the moon and we're still doing this, and it needs to stop. And I'm glad that you mentioned in this particular case that the mother and that the father, who shouldn't be a father, by the way, if he tried to sell his child, that the mother of the father basically was behind it, because I find that a lot. I find that a lot of this, we have men who abandon women. We have men that don't want to care. Well, just don't sign a birth certificate. Don't put your name on a birth certificate. And I know a lot of women who were coerced into this, who were never going to charge him child support. They were never going to make him pay child support. They had to do it, especially the case that we know of, where the mother is threatened and the child is threatened, or they feel threatened. So, but I find out that there's usually a mother-in-law that's behind this, which really makes me think about a lot of the war on women that people talk about. A lot of it comes from other women, especially when, we have all the Donna Imes out there who are these attorneys, and the social workers a lot of them are female. Mm-hmm. And I think about the Celeste Billhart's quote that I love to read. Basically, it says, if war is man's inhumanity to man, then adoption is woman's inhumanity to woman. And I think that is so true.
Yeah, it is. And, it's this whole, a lot of people say, oh, things are done differently. And you know what? They're really not. The church just isn't really that involved now. I mean, it's still there, but really, a lot of that is kind of generational. A lot of that is still handed down, where, oh, you're just too young and you're not going to have a life, and, you're just going to college, and that's it's just wrong. And that was exactly what, in this case in Tennessee that I talked about, that's what his mother was saying. You guys are so young, you're just going in, you can go to school, you can finish this out, and all of that. And you can do all of that stuff and still be a mom. People do it. She just needed to be supported, and that's exactly what happened. And that's what happens in a lot of the cases that we've come across. I just started out as a single person, just really started talking to people and started to kind of educate mothers, and then when I started to actually have success and I started to talk about it, and then the moms who I've helped start to talk about it on social media and really start to post pictures of them and their baby and how they're so thankful. And 6 months down the road, they can't even fathom how they even got to that point. And quite honestly, I can't fathom how I got to that point 5 years ago, where I was in such a state that I felt I had to give my baby to strangers. I just can't explain it. I can't wrap my head around it. And
Well,
if you have not been through it, if you have not ever been in a crisis situation, you will never understand it. I just had my last baby. She'll be 2 in April, and completely different pregnancy. I married my son's father. We are together. I had not a worry in the world. And everything was perfect, and that the pregnancy with my son was just ridden with gestational diabetes. It was horrible. And so, a lot of that I contribute to stress. And, the other thing is a lot of moms, they don't feel like they just don't want to, they don't want to ask. They don't want to ask for help. They independent, they take it on and they say, oh, I got myself a year and now here I sit and I need to figure this out. And they end up thinking that that's going to be their way to figure it out.
yeah, they're sort of guilted into it. They're guilted into it, and it's the what's best fallacy. I wrote a whole blog debunking the what's best fallacy, and they're told, well, you're not good enough for your own flesh and blood, which is ridiculous. That is so fallacious just in of itself.
The 2-parent household, they need the 2-parent household. Of course, a 2-parent household, yes, that is a good thing, but it's not that a 1-parent household can't be a good thing either.
Yeah. And the fact that single mothers are still demonized in this country, I mean, really, people, not only that, but adoptive parents divorce, sometimes at a higher rate than even natural families who are poor and may have made that choice because they didn't think they could afford their child, or they couldn't get assistance, or they were underinsured. And then that's another problem when you can't qualify for Medicaid, but you're underinsured and you're afraid that how are you going to afford the hospital bills? And it is completely, I don't use this word lightly, but it is evil what we do to mothers and women in this country. The fact that we are the only first world nation without maternity leave, without federally protected maternity leave or family leave.
It's funny you mentioned that. That's actually what my situation was. I had a private insurance policy. It didn't have maternity insurance on it. So I started to go to the doctor to get my prenatal care, and all the claims started to get denied. And so as time progressed, everything was fine for me for the first 4.5 months. And I started to stress and I got really sick. Which is something I found out actually has a name. It was all day and all night sickness. I could not get off the sofa. I could not go to work. It was horrible. And it's a term they call hyperemesis gravidarum. And it's just constant sickness. And I needed medication to be able to function. And so the doctor prescribed that. I went to the pharmacy to go pick it up, and they said, okay, that'll be $600. It was for a prescription for Zofran. And that sent me over the edge. That was, I think, kind of the beginning of the whole process for me. Once I realized, how am I going to do this? I cannot afford a $600 medication for 30 days. I have to have it in order to work. And that's when things just started to spiral out of control. So, and then I made too much money to get qualified for Medicare or Medicaid. And it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare.
And, the fact, and I'm going to call it evil again, the fact that these wealthy families who could do, if they believe in all the charity, and a lot of them are religious and they say they believe in charity, and that's great, we all should. But why are they not paying to help families stay together? Why do they not love that child enough if they love babies so much, for that child to stay with its mother? Why? And it's selfish, and that there is a sense of entitlement, especially with what's going on in this state with the wealthy, Mountain Brook being one of the top 10 zip codes, and the fact that they really feel entitled. And this is where the classism part comes in, and why I have to say that I'm a fan of Bernie. But the classism is a really big key part of this. And you can see it in the fact that there are social workers and adoption attorneys making thousands, profits, just not for paperwork and stuff and for legal fees, but they are profiting off of children primarily. And this is where the race issue comes in, white babies. And do you want to explain why white babies go for so much more? They can make, what is it, $35K just in profits off of a white baby and an adoption attorney?
Yeah, because those are the people who are adopting. They're white families, middle class white families. Those are the people who are adopting, and that's exactly it. You know, the mixed babies. You can even go out. I just found a website that actually had prices out there. I can go out and find that again. But I try to save a lot of these things to be able to refer to, because people think that this isn't real, and this is very real. This happens today. You know. I was told my son is mixed race. I was told that he would have been $10,000 more at least if he would have been full Caucasian baby. And yeah, it was pretty shocking. I had no idea. That didn't even cross my mind.
How much did they pay?
17,000 is what I was told.
And that was adoptive parents, what they dropped.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was told. Yeah, we had the conversation after, you know, everything had gone down, and they had asked me how much I had received in expenses, which I hadn't received anything. I didn't need anything in expenses. It literally, you know, would have taken me just somebody to calm me down and just say, look, you can make payments on the medical bills. You can, you know, there's lots of things that you can do. We'll figure out let's try to get you some help with childcare. Let's try to help, you know, that was where my head was, is how am I going to do childcare? How am I going to do, you know, 2 kids? How am I going to do my job? How am I working, 10, 12-hour days? How am I going to figure this out? When, in all reality, I had the support there. I just needed to ask for it. I just needed to know where to go. And that was never offered, never explored. The agency, a very well-known agency in Texas, based out of Fort Worth, she knew exactly why I was placing, and she knew exactly what my reasons were. And it wouldn't have taken me thousands of dollars to be able to parent my son. And that's what happens with a lot of the moms that we connect with. Literally it is less than $500 to really, that's generally what happens, is, we basically talk to them about what their situation is. We really take a look at it, at how temporary things are. And that's generally the case, is that their situations are temporary. My situation was temporary. In a matter of months, everything that I was concerned about was literally gone. And
yeah,
I had I had no recourse. There was nothing I could do. Florida is a no revocation state, which is another issue with the laws. You have Alabama that has your pre-birth consent, which is ridiculous. You have no idea what you're signing up for when you do something like that. And no one could have explained the grief, and no one could have explained the nightmare that this really is.
And we also need to touch on the fact that adopted children, whether it's through foster care or these so-called legitimate agencies, adopted kids are more likely to actually be physically abused in general. Mm-hmm. And what is the current status? Is it 6 times or 6 times more likely to be abused?
I don't know the actual status on that, but I do know that, the trauma that they suffer, a lot of kids, there's a lot of documentation out there about trauma and how kids are reacting. Either they become people pleasers, so that they don't become abandoned again. They have a lot of abandonment issues. they just feel like they're not good enough. Why was I given away? They just really don't understand that. And the sad thing about it is that the adoption industry doesn't give adoptive parents this information either. The kids literally are product. They're sold, and after they reach the client's hands, the check exchanges hands, and basically they're done, and the adoptive family is left with this child to fill a void that in many cases is really unrealistic for that child, because they're not that in that genetic makeup. They don't have the mannerisms. They don't have the genetics. They don't fit. And a lot of adoptive people, grow up and they express that. It may take them decades to get to that, which is generally what I've seen. And that's another reason that I try to have moms talk to, adult adoptees who can actually explain what it was like for them to grow up being adopted. Of course, they love their adoptive family. They need to love that adoptive family. That family took them in, and so it's a very conflicted situation that they end up in. Some choose to acknowledge it, some choose not to, but it's definitely there.
I do have one source that I have pulled up for the child abuse of adopted children, and that is from the Journal of Applied Developmental Psychology, and it's from 2015. That's last year, November, December. If you guys want to check that out, there's a link to it on my blog, and it talks about basically, I have the abstract, a section of the abstract placed on my blog. My blog is The Burning Times of Vesper Wolf, and I'll put a link up. And I go through the trauma of adoption, and also a number that I got from Priscilla, our friend, Priscilla Stone Sharp. Basically, adoptees, there's a high suicide rate. They're 40 times more likely to commit suicide because they're cut off. They're cut off at the root from their roots. And it's a very real thing. So in Priscilla, I love the way she explains it. She's so good with words. She said, no matter what type of person you are, whether you're a religious person or a secular person, nature abhors a vacuum. Nature will always abhor a vacuum. God abhors deception and dishonesty. Right. And that is what everyone needs to remember. Yeah. Because it is deceiving, it is a vacuum, and it is deception and dishonesty.
Right. We have a summit coming up. The Saving Our Sisters Summit. We're having a gathering in Kansas City in May. It's the weekend of the 12th through the 15th, and we're having a few sessions. We have some really awesome presenters who are going to come and do some presentations at the summit. And one of them is actually talking about the church and how the church has this view on adoption, and really it needs to be shifted. The church really needs to shift to a family preservation-based mode, because that way you ensure that these mothers are not giving up on themselves. They're not giving up on their kids. They actually have the support that they need. And if at a certain point in time, after they have that support, can they really truly make a choice? If someone is at their whole back and everything is up against the wall, and they really just can't see a way out, they're really not making a choice. They're really being forced into that. One option is no choice. And that's a good, that's another blog. A friend of mine who is a step-parent adoptee and a first mom writes at. Her name is Carlin Hirschberger. She's phenomenal. And, that's the title of her blog. And it's that's one of the presentations that's going to be there, is how to start kind of a family preservation-based unit in your church. So we're trying to, not only just come together as a group and really, because many of us haven't met online, haven't met in person. We're all this virtual network, nationwide network. And it started out as just, hey, let's get together. And now we've kind of pulled in some really, really awesome people that are going to put some things together to actually help people become active in this and really, get the point across and really give them some tools to actually start opening eyes and so in a way that's not dismissive, that's not going to get them dismissed, which is generally what happens when you speak out against adoption in any way, shape, or form. It's we're crashing and burning the facade that the industry is selling, and they will go to any lengths to keep it that way. But
Yes.
they didn't plan on the internet. They didn't plan on us finding each other, and that's exactly what's happened.
And again, that's why they try to break everyone apart, especially mother and child. And we need to note that it is an industry. It's an industry of selling newborns because everyone wants a puppy, everyone wants a kitten. They don't want to go get an older child who may need a home in foster care. They want that blank slate. And
right.
yeah. And it's a $14 billion industry currently. I think that's the current number on that industry, baby selling industry.
And that's the other thing, that's the whole science about it too. When you go and look at that, babies aren't blank slates. As you said, they're connected to their mother. They're connected. They think they're one with their mother for the first, I think it's 18 months. Some of the studies say, and they're not blank slates. And they do cry for their mothers. They scream for their mothers. And it's dismissed as colic, or oh, maybe they do go through a little bit of separation. My son went through it. It was horrible. He suffered horribly. So it's that's the stuff that needs to be talked about, that full disclosure.
And really, real quick, just for people who are watching, go ahead and mention some blogs and some sites they can go to besides Saving Our Sisters. I just mentioned mine, The Burning Times of Vesper Wolf. You can look up the Huffington Post article on wrongful adoption, and I'll link all these. What are some other blogs they can go to?
There's a blog out there, Musings of the Lame. There is Claudia D'Arcy. She has been blogging for many years on this. She has got away with finding facts out about everything. She's my go-to with the whole revenue of the adoption industry. She digs into all of this and really figures it out and spells it out very, very plainly. There's the New York State adoptee. There's some adoptee rights things going on there. There's so many facets of this. I have gotten out of kind of the blogging sphere because I'm really focused on trying to find those moms and really build this network, continue to build the network to basically be ready that when we do find a mom, we can really jump on it and understand. But there's some organizations out there that are doing some really good things. There's an organization in Lakeland, Florida. It's called New Life Center for Family Preservation. And she actually, Carolyn Espina, who's an adoptee, that's the other thing I'll talk about in a minute, but she's actually purchased a home and takes mothers in off the street and works with them and gets them back up on their feet and gets them going. Another organization in Oklahoma is called Family Preservation Outreach, and Dr. Linda Russell Katz actually has that. She is helping natural families fight for their rights, whether that be fighting to get the baby back, whether that would be fighting to keep an open adoption open. She does a lot of different things, but Musings of a Birth Mom is kind of she's my go-to person, Jennifer. She is fabulous. She really has a way with getting the facts out there. She was very instrumental in the Bring Baby Elliot Home documentation. She really did a lot of digging and really spelled it out for the attorneys and spelled it out for the public generally that, Donna Ames was running a network. She was running an industry. She had a human trafficking industry there. And it became very apparent after you look at, the judges sitting on the boards, the other attorneys sitting on the board, and everybody was in that little club. So,
So let's move on to the Baby Elliot case, which is near and dear to my heart because it's happening to my state, and it's very similar to what's happened to my family members. And it's odd because I feel a deep connection to Kimberly. I don't know if we're somehow second cousins in this state because we're both from Alabama, but it's her story is heart-wrenching. And it starts with a bad relationship where she's threatened, like so many girls, by, we'll just call him the sperm donor because I don't want to say father. And, you know, he's threatening her. And so she looks for a way out, and you can take it from there and fill in the gaps.
Yeah. And, you know, so, and this is really spelled out too over at Musings of a Birth Mom. She documents it really well. And basically Kimberly connected up with Donna Ames and Adoption Rocks, which it's very confusing, but apparently it's an adoption agency that's not an adoption agency per Donna Ames. But Donna Ames took her in front of a judge and basically had her sign a pre-birth consent. And it was very clear that Kimberly didn't really understand that this was a pre-birth consent and that she really had to do anything other than let Donna know and Kate Sharp know that she was keeping her baby when she decided to keep her baby and change her mind, and which is exactly what Kimberly did. It's documented in text messages. It's not only documented in text messages, it's actually acknowledged in text messages and other writings that they acknowledged that she was keeping Elliot. And lo and behold, you know, Donna Ames kind of washed her hands, had another attorney take over, which happened to be sitting on the board of Adoption Rocks as well. And they went in front of a separate judge who is, I guess, in a sense said that, you know, that wasn't, he didn't know anything about an adoption. Mm-hmm. He didn't know that was even the case. And so, you know, that what's really scary is that there was no CPS called. If you know, someone makes a call and says a baby is in danger, you literally have to go through CPS, DCFS, whatever it is in your location. That didn't happen here. You know, this judge just basically signed an order and sent sheriff's deputies to go pick up a baby. That's, I can't even believe that this even happened. You know, that's like my neighbor saying, oh, you know, they have some dangerous things at their house next door, and I know they just had a baby, so, you know, we need to go and take the baby. I mean, it's just shocking that could happen in this day and age, and that she still does not have her baby back is just, I have no words. I have no words. It's really, I have so much contempt for the system there and all of the people who are involved. It's just,
it's ugly. And, you know, it's when I hear these people on Twitter or the internet and they want to talk about how Western women don't have a need for feminism. Well, all they have to do is look at the hashtag bring baby Elliot home, because she's not the only one it's happened to in this state. They are basically using poor women as incubators, and they're selling their babies. And with a pre-birth contract, or consent rather, it is a contract. It's a legal document, but they're told that is preliminary, that it's only a consideration. Right. And of course they go through the whole mind numbing coercion and Stockholm syndrome of these people, and building them up, breaking them down, doing it over and over again. All the stuff that, you know, we've all read the Huffington Post articles, what Kate Sharp said and did to Kimberly, how she acted like her friend, Donna Ames being very verbally abusive to her, and also the fact that the judge that signed the removal order, what is it, the interlocutory order, they actually went through the wrong court. Yeah. And they knew they were going through the wrong court. They knew they were, and the judge even threw up his hands and said, oh, I wouldn't have signed if I'd known it was an adoption. This isn't my jurisdiction. Well, then why did he not recant? Why? And Don Davis, the original attorney who signed Kimberly's contract consent, isn't he currently sitting on the board still of Adoption Rocks?
I don't know. It's funny because they've been shut down, they've opened back up, they've moved. I'm not even sure exactly where it is, but that's the whole shell game, really. Mm-hmm. Is, you know, let's just point our fingers at whoever else was in the room and say, oh, it wasn't me, it was him. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what, you know, these agencies do. These agencies will blame the caseworker. They kind of, you know, point the finger and really deny that they did any wrongdoing. Mm-hmm. It's very typical, you know, it's very typical. Or, you know, in this case, I think as well, Don Davis ended up stepping down.
Yes.
And then brought in someone that he's connected with and said, oh, I'm going to appoint you to be the judge in this.
His own personal attorney. Druin was his own personal attorney, is my understanding. The attorney that he appointed was the judge's own after the judge recused himself, after he stepped down, he appointed his own attorney. And this is why that Kate Sharp sitting up here in Mountain Brook, suburb of Birmingham, why she still has Elliot, why she still has another woman's baby. So the judge who signed the order has admitted it was potentially illegal, that it was a wrong, incorrect order, that Elliot never should have been removed.
Right.
Anything said against Kimberly has been disproven. CPS, DHR, they were never involved. There was never any question. They were never involved. They were never brought in, which the judge should have known better. Every judge sitting on a bench is supposed to look at the CPS history, and there was virtually no history. Elliot was 3 weeks old. When the sheriffs came, they removed him. My understanding is they actually took the baby off her breast.
Yeah, they did let her finish feeding him, and basically made her put him in his car seat and took him.
So the rich woman from Mountain Brook, she didn't even have a car seat. She took Kimberly's car seat.
I guess. I mean, it's mind-boggling to me. I don't understand. I don't understand why it takes so long to get a baby returned. And I'll go back. It really literally goes back around in circle when, the thing is that, we, the SOS network, got hooked into this Tennessee case literally just in the nick of time. And something like this would have happened with Kimberly if she was blindsided. So she didn't even have a chance to even think about anything. She thought that she was in the clear. She notified Donna Ames. She notified, Kate Sharp. They acknowledged it. They wished her well. They literally blindsided her. That was just, as you said, evil. It was just flat out evil.
And money is at the root of all this. It is always about money. The thing about the whole, you don't need to be a single mother. Well, then why did they sell a single mother's baby to another single mother when she's like 50 something years old? This is wannabe mom is 50 something years old. She's had, a lot of opportunities to have her own children and didn't do it, but she's wealthy. She has the means to buy a baby.
Yep. And that's what happened. The entitlement here. That's literally what happened. How someone could go in front of a judge and say this baby is in danger and not have CPS involved. I'd love to read those transcripts, because how does that happen?
Well, everything is currently under gag, and
right.
I'm sure everyone out there knows what a gag order is, so that's why we have no updated information. But the child was seized, was it July? It was this last July. He's been away from his mother since July.
Yep.
So and it's still ongoing.
It is still ongoing. And I'm sure, it will go for a while longer, as long as the money lasts, because that's what it's all about. And that's the sad thing is, I literally tell people to take the baby home. Do not, don't sign anything. Do not do anything, because again, these agencies, these caseworkers, they know exactly what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And you will end up with adoption. There is no, I'm going to think about it. It doesn't happen.
And one thing that you mentioned about, this has been going on for a while. People are working on this in the state. I can't really talk about it because it's under gag as well. But there's in Alabama state law, even if you file a motion for a fraudulent adoption and you win, after a year, it's in our state law that fraudulent adoption cannot be overturned, even if it's fraudulent. And so there are people on that side working to eradicate that, to get rid of that, to get that off the books, to fix that. With pre-birth consent, what women are not told, it actually is you're selling your fetus, which to me, isn't that selling body parts? Aren't these agencies and attorneys, aren't they selling body parts? Because basically a fetus, you could say it's stem cells and they're selling body parts. And isn't that what someone else out there got in trouble for? So they're actually selling your fetus, basically, is what they're doing when you sign that contract. When a woman signs that contract, they don't tell her that. They don't tell her that it can stand alone. It's not supposed to. So they say stand alone as adoption papers, but it can, because the judge who you signing from can claim he was signing in your best interest, the woman's best interest, which if this is not misogyny and sexism and it's happening here in America, I don't know what is. So this stuff is scary when you actually read the law. And Alabama law, I almost went to law school, and my first degree is in pre-law public policy. So when you read the law, it is horrifying.
Yeah. And, that's what a lot of people, really don't do is actually read the law, and literally, like I said, in this Tennessee case, I keep going back to this because it's the most recent and it was so blatant. And that's why that baby was returned. It was blatant, that they tried to have her waive her revocation, and that they didn't even follow one letter of that law. She had absolutely no representation, and they knew very well that she needed that representation in order for that to be legal. I mean, we have it on videotape that the caseworker said, well, we didn't give you a copy of that. We didn't give you that to sign prior to. They give you blank copies so that you can kind of review everything before you actually sign it. Oh, we didn't give that to you. That's on videotape. I mean, it's blatant what they were doing, and they really take advantage of these mothers who aren't always young, but who do not know that they need to dig into the statutes. They don't know their rights. They don't know that they can have their own attorney. That's never brought up. It was never brought up with me. Never.
And that's what they said on the Adoption Rocks website. And I started tweeting about it, putting it all over online. That's what they declared in their statement. To their potential, they call them birth mothers, that you don't need an attorney. That's okay. We represent you too. They actually declared that, and then they were dumb enough, or either they thought no one would ever call them on it, that they could just blatantly sell human life. They were dumb enough to list their circle of OBGYNs, of all the religious groups they're affiliated with, Catholic Charities, which is where my family's personal story comes in. So religious charities, what they're doing now, and Priscilla pointed this out to me too, they're actually using these private adoption agencies and these private attorneys and these social workers. Yep. And they're going through private means, but they're still doing the same thing. Yep. And I'll start to talk a little bit about why I feel so strongly about adoption trafficking, and why my whole thing of why I have the opinions and the convictions I do is because of what I have seen. And I've never had a child ripped from my arms. I've never had one taken away. And I'm not a mom of a human. I have 6 cats. So why did I come to care about this? Because I grew up in a community where adoption trafficking was practiced. And there was this myth of, oh, it's better. It's better for you and the child. To sell your kid to strangers. And of course, being in rural Alabama in a small Catholic community, we saw this all the time. Now, my husband grew up in Mountain Brook in Birmingham, and his parents, this was the 1990s, I am not kidding, his parents fostered young pregnant girls through Catholic Charities, 4 Catholic Charities.
Wow.
And this was happening, and I told Priscilla this too, this was happening in the 1990s. So it is still going on probably today. If his parents were doing it back then, and that's really not that long ago, most of us were alive back then. We were kids, and he witnessed that. And he witnessed the agony of these mothers and had to live with that. And that's why my husband is such a good man. He's such an advocate for women today because of what he saw.
That's right. Yeah, and I say this all the time too. It's exactly, something like that. Until you've gone through it, you can't describe it. You don't understand it. But I've gone through it, and I know that no mother should ever go through what I went through. There's just no reason for it. Just like, your husband saw. I mean, she dies. A part of her dies, and the old me is dead. And I say that all the time. And now this is the new me. I'm not going to be silenced. I'm not going to be quiet. I'm going to talk about what happened to me, because it was very, very unnecessary. It was unjust. And I'm going to talk about everything that's happened to every mother that I come across. And it's wrong. It's wrong. As a society, it's so scary. It is so scary that, someone would jump on basically a mother in crisis and tell her that giving her baby away is best. I mean,
Yeah. Well, they're taking advantage of that. And even women that don't have children, it's wired in our DNA. We all have that nurturing instinct to always do what's best for those in your care. You always are wired to do that.
Well,
And that's exactly what they're preying on. And they're telling them, well, this is the consequences of you having sex. So you just have to live with it. And they guilt her. This happened to my cousin, and it happened to my god sister's real mother. It's, of course, my god sister's mom was more that mid-century stuff back in the 1970s. And if you're really looking for a good history of adoption trafficking, start by Googling Georgia Tan with two N's at the end of it. She was the famous child serial killer and pedophile and adoption trafficker of Hollywood. She's the one who got Joan Crawford her children.
Yep.
And
many others.
Yeah, it's horrifically frightening. Mm-hmm. But my cousin she was raped, and she was 14, and she had her baby when she was 15. So she was a minor, and everyone was on her like she was fresh meat. I mean, she was a living, walking incubator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what they're doing to these poor women. They are making women incubators. And this is happening in America. And it's amazing how many people don't even know if it were happening to rich people or even middle class. But it does happen to middle class. It's just lower middle class. Okay. But if everyone knew it was going on, there would be an outcry. And I think one person actually wrote a letter to someone and got it to him. I think I wrote to a letter to Bernie and actually had it put in. So we're going to see if we can, because if we're going to have an advocate, it's going to be him.
Yeah.
It's just, so what happened with my cousin, and I've heard that this is very similar. I'm getting emotional. I'm sorry.
No,
but
yeah.
She was basically profiled. And this is very common. They profile Medicaid patients. They profile girls who end up in detention centers. They profile high schools. There's a lot of rumors and allegations that these people from agencies in Alabama, because of pre-birth consent, are actually going to places to seek out women.
Yeah, I'm sure that's happening.
And there is a ring of, and of course I don't have any proof. Everyone's under gag. Well, I do have proof. I just can't talk about it. We have their personal stories. One girl sent me all her medical papers, like copies of it, copies of where they did a non-necessary emergency C-section, cut her open. And then she was still basically waking up from coming out of being put under for that. And they made her sign the papers right there. They said she would never even lay eyes on her child unless she signed the papers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the Tennessee case. That's exactly what they did.
And but they're making them sign papers when they're waking up because you're groggy, and half of them don't even realize what they're signing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if ever I've undergone major surgery, you don't know where you're at for the first I didn't for like half a day after being under all the way. It's
And that's the other thing that they, a lot of these laws in a lot of the states, with Florida, for example, Florida's a no revocation. If the baby's under 6 months old, once your pen hits that paper, you're done. You will not get that child back unless you can prove fraud or duress. Mm-hmm. And even then, you still have to have thousands and thousands of dollars. You have to also find an attorney, because you cannot just hire. This is the other thing that happens, is you cannot just hire any attorney. You can't hire a family law attorney to go and fight an adoption case. You have to hire an adoption attorney because they know that law. And the thing is that most attorneys who know the adoption law are the attorneys doing the adoption. So you're asking them to bite the hand that feeds them. Mm-hmm. And it's extremely difficult. Once I figured out kind of what happened to me, I had some extenuating circumstances in my case as well. I had duress documented in my hospital file. I ended up calling a bunch of attorneys, and I had one attorney call me back, and I needed a crazy retainer, and I didn't have it at the time, and there's nothing I could do. But the other thing that they do is, the back to the coercion part of this is, they start to refer to these mothers as birth mothers. They start to get them to dissociate from their baby. Oh, you're the birth mother, you're the wonderful birth mother. And then the whole pre-birth matching thing, that's another,
Mhm.
oh, you're giving this beautiful gift, it's a wonderful thing. And then mom starts to begin to maybe, find us, and maybe she starts to listen to, how her baby is going to suffer. She maybe reads the primal wound and understands these lifelong challenges that her baby's going to, grow into and have to live through and survive, basically. Because that's what the infant really has to do. The infant is forced to deal with its surroundings in order to survive.
Mhm.
That mother is gone. The only thing that they've known is gone. And so, once they start to listen to all of this and they start to maybe think about it and go, wow, if I have this group of people who are willing to stand behind me and who are willing to maybe support me while I'm on maternity leave, or, get me through this, come visit me, be by my side, what have you, maybe I can do this. But now I've got this adoptive couple. Now I've got these people who I'm going to have to let down. I'm going to have to, crash their dreams. I'm going to have to do this, and they go through that whole obligation that pre-birth matching and everything creates. And it just should not happen. It should not happen.
And again, this is where other women come in, where they think because they have money, they think they're owed someone else's child. And some of the conversations I've seen, these whether they're infertile or whatever their case may be, I don't care. I don't feel any sympathy for these women that are bullying these poor women into saying, oh, well, I'm going to be so much better. I'll take care of your baby. I promise you can see it whenever you want to. Promising all these things, and some of the things that, I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
it is the worst kind of bullying that I've ever seen.
And the other piece of it too is this whole expenses thing. They pay them expenses. They'll pay them, maybe they pay their rent. Maybe they pay a utility bill. Maybe they're just giving them money to go buy clothes. What happens in some cases, and what I've seen documented in some cases, is that the attorney actually threatens the mother that you're going to have to pay that back. And if you change your mind, you're going to have to pay that back immediately. And if you don't, we're going to sue you.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually happened in a case that we were dealing with in Florida. Mom hadn't even had her baby yet. Baby wasn't due until June. In May, she basically said, she didn't even tell them that she was going to keep her baby. She just said, you know what, I'm feeling some pressure from you guys. I'm just going to back off. I just want some space. And before her baby was even born, they went and filed a lawsuit to sue her for the expenses that they paid her. So she didn't even tell them that she was keeping her baby, and they basically went out and done that. Now, we did find an attorney that I'm slowly building a network also of attorneys to, fight these cases. Basically, people who see what's going on in this industry and really want to stand up for what's right in these families. And so she took the case. The agency's attorney has not done anything on the case. It's literally sitting there, and we are hoping that it does get dismissed for non-activity. We're coming up on a year here. It will be happening in May. So, but that's the thing, is that unless these agencies, these caseworkers, these attorneys figure out that the jig is up, that these people really do know and have connected with people who know what's going on, they're not going to stop. They're too driven by money. This is what pays their bills.
To me, in my opinion, jail would be too good for these people. And I know that most these people are never going to be in prison. They're never going to see jail, are they? Or is there a way?
There's no laws right now. There's nothing to say. And that's where I was going kind of at the beginning of our conversation. What we've learned is you can file a bar complaint, you can file a case against their license, a complaint against their license, and maybe they get a fine, but the natural family doesn't see any of that. The natural family doesn't have any recourse. They don't get any, I'm sorry. They don't get any of that. They get a mark on their license. But I've not seen anything come of this. I had one attorney in California threaten a mom after we had actually helped her go and pick up her son from the pap's house. She had changed her mind. She'd sent out like 200 letters and got in touch with Concerned United Birth Parents, CUB, which is a 40-year-old organization that SOS has recently partnered with this past October. And they reached out to me. I basically called the network in, got a lady out in San Francisco that said, you know what, I'll do whatever, she needs. What does she need? I said, she has nothing. She planned on, doing this adoption. And the attorneys dropped her like a hot potato. He just said, okay, fine. You're going to have to get him back. You're going to have to figure it out. Now, she was in Nevada and had to drive actually to California to pick up her son. So her and her mom drove over there, and the lady that I had, reached out to basically in 24 hours filled her Suburban with every baby thing that you could possibly, fit in her car. And she met Christina and went with her to the Pap's house. Christina walked in, there were 6 people there, all in suits, and everybody was dressed up. And she picked up her son and walked out to the car, and they left. And they didn't know who was with her. They didn't know if she was CPS. They didn't know if she was a police officer. They didn't know if she was family. They had no idea who she was, and that was the best thing that could have ever happened. I think there was absolutely no confrontation. I think that they were, potentially looking to maybe intimidate her, having 6 people there, which didn't happen. So, all these mothers need is an advocate. They need an unbiased advocate who supports them.
Yes.
That's exactly, and that's what SOS does. We support them. We don't have any skin in the game. We're not going to lose anything, and we're not going to gain anything if they parent or keep their parent or decide to give up their child. I mean, and that's exactly what I tell them. Is that we're not here to do anything but help you. And really truly explain what the ramifications are to not only, you, but also your baby and what your baby's going to go through.
And it's Saving Our Sisters, and you can find the Facebook page. Also, we were talking about the primal wound. It's Nancy Verrier. I think that's Verrier. I think that's how you pronounce her name. Again, I will put that in the link. I'm
sorry. And interestingly enough, she's an adoptive parent.
Really? Well, good for her. I'm glad that she did that.
Book about the daughter that she adopted. She really realized all of the challenges that her daughter was facing and was going through, and that she couldn't fix it.
That's incredible. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's one of my first go-to resources that I tell these moms to read, is because if somebody would have told me that, I wouldn't be talking to you today.
Yeah. And people always ask, I've been accused of being crazy for giving a damn about this. And that's the most horrible thing people can say is tell us that, we're crazy. Well, why do you care? Almost like anyone who this hasn't happened to, who's not a victim, they shouldn't care. But victims need advocates. And I stood witness to a crime against humanity, and I'm not going to be quiet. Exactly. This is a crime against humanity. It is an attack on motherhood, the very foundation of our species, and it is a crime against humanity. And it needs to be recognized. The UN, I think the UN recognizes it as a crime against humanity as well. And actually, talking of the UN, their Declaration of Human Rights, Alabama is in violation of quite a few of those. So it is your responsibility when as a decent human being, and I don't care what code you follow, I don't care what philosophy, what religion or not you subscribe to, I don't care. It is your responsibility when you witness a crime against humanity to speak out. Yeah. And I deeply believe that. And that's one of the reasons why we're speaking out today. Mm-hmm. And it does, we've talked a lot about how it affects the babies, but it is one of the best, most illustrating quotes that I heard from a mother. And I call them biological mothers, or just mothers, or real mothers, or natural mothers. I don't use the term birth mother, because that is a slur. One of the great quotes that I've heard is that adoption is a living death.
It is. Yeah. And there's a whole nother aspect of this. There's lots of other aspects of this. You have the sealed records in order to protect the adoptive family and all of that were put in place years and years ago. And we're slowly breaking down those barriers now. But the kept siblings too, the natural siblings. My daughter has suffered a lot. My oldest suffered a lot. So the adoption with my son actually was closed in 2012, my son was about 17 months. The last time I've actually saw him was 15 months, when he was 15 months old. And 2 days later, I miscarried. I couldn't handle it. That I was losing him all over again. It was very traumatic. And so I've not lost one, but actually two to adoption. And to see some of the things that my daughter, my oldest, has written, she picked his birthday. So his birthday is the day after hers. She didn't want to share her birthday. But ever since, her birthday has been overshadowed by the loss of her brother, and the fact that she has now since been cut off. And basically, I've received messages and lots of messages basically saying that, because of what you're doing, because of all the saving, in quotes, that we're not going to be able to have a relationship with our son. So I have to take that risk, because we've at this point helped over 50 mothers and babies stay together. They don't know what this living hell is. And I hope one day that my son will truly understand that I can't stop. I'm not going to be quiet and let this happen to other people. It's just as you said, when you see that something is wrong, silence is acceptance. That's one of my favorite quotes. And I can't do it. I just can't do it. I have never intentionally done anything to hurt anyone. And definitely not my son. This is definitely not the intent. So once I found out the reality of what this all did to him and me and my, kept children, and it just, I can't be quiet. I won't be quiet.
And also, in case anyone starts to Google and you find that you're having trouble finding exactly how much kids are going for newborns, especially white newborns, since they go for the highest, adoption records, that's one of the reasons why they're sealed. So you don't know how much profit is being made on that child.
Yep. There's no regulation. This industry is highly, highly unregulated. Price tags come from, anywhere. I mean, they literally just, they can set their price to whoever they want. If there's a multi-million-dollar family, I'm guessing Kate Sharp probably paid quite a bit of money in order to have Elliot.
Yep. Mm-hmm. She did.
Much more than, maybe somebody else living in, another low-lying area. The two most oppressed states in the country are Louisiana and Mississippi. They have some of the lowest income and those type of things, and I'm sure that the rates are lower there. I mean, it's all a sliding scale, and that's what people need to realize, is that this is human trafficking. It's selling babies.
And it's also using women as brood mares, taking advantage of women, whether you're in physical duress or financial duress, and using them, or underage and your parents are speaking for you, using another minor, using another minor to take her baby and buy the minor of a minor. Right. And this is still ongoing. It's more hidden. It's more hidden than it was in the mid-century, and it was hidden even back then, because he used to send women away, and we all know what happened in Australia and even the UK, and they tie women down and take their children and bind their breasts so they couldn't breastfeed. You can look all that stuff up if you don't know it, but this has been going on for a very long time. And I love that you call this the age of coercion and adoption, because it's very much that. It's also the age of where I really think we really see classism coming into play. Yeah. Where if you have money in America, you can buy anything, even a human life. Yeah. And part of the reason this means a lot to me is because I'm in Alabama. This is my state. Because of pre-birth consent, because of the way adoption laws are, even just adoption laws across the country, my state is still selling people. Alabama. Didn't we once have a really bad reputation for that? We're still selling people. This was supposed to end in 1865, guys. And that really, really deeply disturbs me, because people always talk about, well, you should just leave the South. You're educated. You're an English teacher. You have a master's. You're married to a physicist. What the hell are you guys doing there with all those? Well, people, if every intelligent person leaves, or every advocate like you, if everyone who maybe we don't fit in. If we all leave, there's no one here to change. There's no one here to change the laws. There's no one here to help the people that need help in every situation. And this is a great example of anyone that wants to do some good. Please look up Saving Our Sisters. Please look up every site. Off the top of your head, do you have a GoFundMe account? Do you have any sort of charities they can give to? You mentioned Cub.
Yeah, Cub. So since Saving Our Sisters has partnered with Cub last October, basically we are under their 501c3 status. So it is a nonprofit organization now. All donations can be made through that website. They are tax deductible. You have to double check with your tax advisor, of course. But you can go to cubirthparents.org, and you can go ahead and click on the donate button, and you'll see an option there for Saving Our Sisters, and the minimum amount is $10. And, you know, every little bit helps. I mean, these moms, like I said, most of them need less than $500 in order to keep, you know, their children. We just had a mom this week. She had twins, and these are number 4 and 5 for her kids. So she's got her hands full, but she grew up in foster care and she knows what it's all about. And she initially did consider adoption, and that's how she got connected with the organization. And just after talking with her, I didn't have to talk much, you know, literally, because she knows what the trauma is of being separated from your family. And she's a good mom. She's a good mom. So we've got, there's a local support person there. And that's generally what Saving Our Sisters is about. Is I try to find somebody that's local to them that can mentor them and just be there for them to talk, you know, and eventually build up a friendship. And, you know, if they need a break, they can watch their kids for an hour or two or what have you. You know, it's literally just being there for them and providing that support. It's not necessarily monetary, because a lot of these moms, they don't ask for things. It's really not about the things. It's they just need someone to build them up and build back the faith that they've lost in themselves. And that's what we do. So, and it's been very successful. We've had, I'm hoping to have at least 2 or 3 moms at the SOS Summit in Kansas City in May. So they can be there to talk about, you know, how we've helped them and how they've gone on with their lives and how the kids are doing. It's a great thing to kind of watch the kids grow.
That's awesome.
It is. It really is.
Anything else you want to mention before we go? Any other story or anything?
Nope. I think that's it. You know, just we thank you for your support. I hope that you come over to the Saving Our Sisters Facebook page, look us up. Also check out See You Birth Parents. And you know, there's a lot of information there, from support to you know, being on the SOS activist side. So again, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate this.
And thank you. And thanks for sharing your story with everybody out there, because they needed to hear a story from a woman firsthand. And I appreciate you and everything you do so much. I mean, you are a true hero. You know, if people go to the theater and they watch movies about heroes, but you are a real world hero, and you are changing the world.
I'm trying. I'm just trying. You know, when you see something wrong, like you said, you really have to do something to fix it. And that's what it's all about.
And I'm going to have links, lots of links, and please check out the links. Remember, Saving Our Sisters on Facebook. Also, you can check out the blogs we mentioned. I'll have lots of links to everything. Thank you again, Lynn, for being on. And as always, you have my love and support. And thank you, everyone, for watching this now or in the future. And until next time, and please check out Saving Our Sisters and help us out. Thank you
So much.